My name is Tom Baker, CEO of Catalyst Insurance Systems, and we have the privilege of working with agencies across the country dealing with compensation and all of the things that involve compensation, and that's recruiting and hiring, interviewing, onboarding, coaching, engaging staff. But the idea of millennials is something that just kind of escapes a lot of people because it is a big topic. It is a very necessary topic. And one of my customers, and I'll give him a shout out, Jason Cass. Jason, who has a group of agencies, Agency Intelligence, he also is partner with Travis. They have an agency in St. Louis. And I was talking with Jason recently, and he said, Tom, you need to do a webinar and you need to title it Splits Suck and Bonuses Don't Work. And I love the idea. So the next day, that's when we began planning this and getting this scheduled. We've got over 85 people registered, and I expect we'll have probably 75 plus in attendance today. What that tells me is this topic really is red hot. It's something that people that you are needing as agency owners and managers. I know we have some associations and such here. We've got a wide mix of types of folks attending, but this is a hot topic. And that's why we want to make sure that we spend the time giving you some very practical deliverables that you will come away with from this webinar. The first is we're going to find out how are current compensation methods broken. Some people think they're not. We're going to look at some reasons why I believe they are. How to become a millennial magnet, how to actually draw millennials in and also make them a productive part of your agency. Number 3, how to leverage the power of psychological ownership. This is a very dynamic principle in psychology that we base many of the things that we do on. And I'm going to talk a little bit about psychological ownership. And then we're going to look at how to compensate millennial producers. And I'm going to give a very, very different view. I'll tell you now, when I started this and began researching compensation and millennials, I came into it with the idea of a very old school mentality of producer compensation. I've been at this for about 45 years now, working with people and salespeople in many different roles. And I came into this looking at compensation very differently than we're going to talk about at the end of the webinar, because this is a new day. This is the day that we need some changes in our life. If you think about all the changes we've gone through in the last 10, 15 years, Yellow Pages has become digital marketing, answer machines has become voicemail, our analog phones that just sit in one place is now voice over IP. We get it over multiple platforms wherever we are. Fax machines are now on the computer, if we even use faxes at all, which is not as much. And paper has gone the way of paperless to digital electronic filing. We had changed virtually every way that we do business, every way that matters. We have changed, except the one way that takes over 50 cents out of every hard-earned commission dollar that you bring in. The one thing that takes more than half of the revenue that you bring in is how you pay your staff, and that has remained essentially the same for the past 30, 40 years. The one thing that is most important, we keep doing it the way that we've always done it. And that's what leads me to the idea that the traditional split commission producer model, it just is not an effective model. It doesn't give you the growth that your agency needs. And here are some reasons why. First of all, the producer, You probably have told every producer you have, hey, you can make as much as you want. Sky's the limit. You go out there and earn what they want. Well, even if you give them goals, goals usually don't have a lot of consequences. They're more suggestions. And what you're really telling the producer is you can earn as much as you want, but what are you going to do with a producer that says, hey, I'm comfortable making $50,000 a year? You need that person to make $75,000 a year in order to bring the revenue to grow your agency, but you've given that person permission to set their own standards. And that means both the agency and the producer can lose money because you're letting that person make the decision for your agency how much money they're going to bring in. Traditionally, producers get the higher split regardless how much they sell. If they bring in $1 in premium or they bring in 100,000 or $1,000,000 in premium, they still get that same higher split. That means that you, as the agency owner, are taking all of the risks. You are saying to that person, no matter what you sell, as long as it's new, whether it's $1 or $1,000,000, I'm going to pay you that same highest rate. That means the owner is taking the risk in that situation because you're paying the same rate. Producers usually, and usually that could probably be almost always, they are not accountable to follow a sales playbook. In other words, they don't have goals, they don't have targets. Every study I've read, and you guys, you've studied it and you know this from your years in this business, organizations, sales organizations that follow a plan, that have the tracking, they know what's going on in their sales process, those organizations sell more and make more money. And yet, I talked with an agency, oh gee, this is 12, 13 years ago, 16 full-time producers that all said they're going to make most of their money off of referrals in the next year. So I asked them, how many referrals did you get this year? No one knew. How many are you going to get next year? No one knew. How are you going to get them? No one knew. A sales playbook is essential so that everyone is moving together and that you as an owner have the knowledge that you need in order to lead your producers and really all of your staff. If you do not have the numbers to know particularly the sales process, then you don't have the knowledge to help that producer grow themselves, grow their own income, but also grow the agency income. And the last one, producers, they're really rewarded to build their renewals so they can go out and play golf 3 days a week and pay their bills. They sell when they want to sell more. Al Diamond calls this retiring in place. Some of you have your own terminologies for that. But this traditional model for split commission on producers, I got to tell you, Jason was really right. It does suck because it hurts the agency and it hurts the producer. So what about bonuses? And we talk a lot about bonuses in any business, but we do in ours. And we tend to just kind of cycle the same things through over and over. So how is it broken? Well, if you ask most owners, if I were to do a poll right now and ask generally, have you found bonuses work in your agency? The majority of you would say, not really. Many of you are actually frustrated because you've given producers a tiered model that if they sell more, they can get either a bonus or maybe a little bit more commission. You've offered all of your staff bonuses for doing certain things, and some of it gets done and some of it isn't. It's like a broken record. We just keep tripping over the same cracks in that, playing that same record over and over. Well, one of the reasons that bonuses are broken and that bonuses don't work is bonus and compensation are two entirely different things. We need to separate. But I love bonuses. Bonuses have a place. They are absolutely wonderful. But bonuses have no business in the same sentence as compensation because they are very, very different things. And that's one of the reasons that that broken record is there and that bonuses don't tend to deliver. Now, one of the really big problems with a bonus, if I tell you I'll pay you a higher tier commission or certain amount, pay an extra $1,000 for reaching a certain sales goal, what I'm doing in that is telling you you have permission to choose the value of that bonus. In other words, if you want the money, you can do it. If you don't care, you don't have to do it. I'm leaving it up to you to decide how you really want to do your job. Bonuses have no pain of loss. In other words, if I don't get that money, I never really had it. So I didn't lose anything anyway. And you know, in sales, you always want that person to feel a pain of loss for not doing business with you. You want the same thing in your bonuses and in your compensation, but bonuses really don't deliver that very well. At best, bonuses will result in temporary compliance, but not permanent change. Bonuses will help you on the short term, but bonuses are not going to motivate people. They're not going to drive people consistently to go where you are. Bonuses have a place for some short-term goals, and we'll talk about that at a different time. But bonuses also become entitlements. Bonuses become something that, don't take that Christmas bonus away from me. Don't take that bonus away from me, maybe as a part of the tiered. If you hit a certain goal, you're going to make more. Don't take that away from me because I'm entitled to that bonus. And that's a real problem that happens with bonuses. And the last one is, if you think throwing money at a problem is going to solve that problem or make it go away, bonuses cannot be a substitute for leadership. And a lot of times we try to throw money at things as a way to solve it when we need some processes. We need a compensation plan that makes sense because maybe we need to step up in our leadership ability and not just hope that the bonus is going to solve the problem. Now, the second deliverable I mentioned when we began was how to become a millennial magnet. How are you going to draw millennials to your agency? Well, one thing is realize they're a different breed. Their values, their technology, how they communicate, all of these things are not only different, but sometimes they conflict with boomers or Generation X. These values that they have are different. If we don't understand how millennials think and how they feel, we're not going to be able to attract, and they are very quickly becoming 50%, 35 to 50% of the workforce in 2020 will be millennials. If we don't have millennials on our team, your agency will suffer. This is not a scientific fact, but think about it, it's probably true in your agency. Your customers are very likely to be about the same age as your employees. Boomers employees will not attract millennial customers. I'm sorry, they won't do it. If we're wanting to go after this massive 75 million millennials who are out there, if we want to go after that market, we need millennials as part of our team in order to accomplish that. Now, some of the statistics about boomer are about millennials. 75% of job seekers overall reported that they use social media in their job search. 73% of millennials alone used social media in order to find their job. That means we have to become much more adept at using Instagram and Instant Stories using Facebook, using LinkedIn, and Indeed is good. Actually, millennials prefer Indeed over LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is still a very, very good resource. Social media has to be a part of how we recruit and how we identify and bring these people in, because it's through the social media that these people live. Their trusted network is all of their friends and connections and such. They live as a pack. Boomers tend to live as individuals. Millennials tend to live as a pack. They tend to move together. If we're going to attract them, we need to know where they're living, where they're communicating, and we need to understand the words that are valuable to them. Now, here is a sample job description. And this is one, I'm sending you the template. You can change and make this your own. This is the first of 2 pages, but I'd like for you to just kind of read down through that just a moment. I'm not going to take a lot of time here, but I do want to focus on a few words that are here. Look at the word value driven, team member, recognized, respected, you become a better person, professional, creative, fun, passionate. These are words that are going to attract a millennial. They are looking for words like this in your job post. If you just do a traditional job posting, and in that job posting, you're just talking about the nuts and bolts of the job, you are not going to attract the millennials that you want to attract. These are key words that millennials are looking for when they are looking for a job. Notice a couple of things at the bottom in this last paragraph. I said we're looking for a millennial, for an outside producer who has 500 plus friends or connections. That you probably have not seen in a job posting before. Why would I do that? Because you want to make sure, one, this individual understands social media because you're learning to leverage it more, but that's also 500 potential leads they're bringing into your agency to put into your funnel, because this individual has direct contact with at least 500 people, probably much more than that, in their network. I'm also finding that the idea of, I've got a couple of agencies are doing this, and this has been one of the changes I've had to make, because I've thought in terms of commercial or producer or life, separate producers, but consider the idea of having one producer do all 3. Now, the service would have to be divided, I understand that, but as far as the producer is concerned, commercial, personal, and life, one person, when they do all 3, that gap, that chasm that exists between departments where so much of your business is being lost, when you have one person that's writing all of that, you begin to close up those gaps, and that can mean tremendous increases in revenue for your agency. Now, this is the second page. This is the second part of the job template, the job ad. Notice again, you have some very important words. The outside producer will have a significant voice. We value what they bring to the table more than the hours worked. Communication, feedback, recognition is a big, big word for millennials. Financial security, balanced integration of life at home and at work. Those are important words that you want to use not only in recruiting millennials, but as a part of your agency culture and mission, vision, and core values of how you do business as an agency. Notice the benefits in the last paragraph. These are different. Mobile workplace, unlimited paid time off. You say, well, I can't do that. People will take 3 months off. It's really interesting. The studies I've read, when you offer unlimited paid time off, people take off less time than if you give them 3 weeks, which is a very interesting thought. When you think about it, they'll take less time unlimited than they do if you give them 3 weeks paid vacation every year. And the reason is, if that 3 weeks is mine and I'm in December, I'm going to take every day I've got, because I'm not going to lose something that is mine. If it's unlimited paid time off, they only take it off when they need it. Delivery, dry cleaning. You're not going to pay for dry cleaning, but how about having Amazon, when they shop online, the packages say, hey, have that delivered to the agency so it doesn't have to sit on your outside your house or your apartment until you come home at night. Healthy snacks, that's something that actually attracts millennials. And here's one of my choice. Say, hey, we'll donate 2% of all commission revenue that you write, the new business, not renewal, but of all commission revenue you write, to the charity of your choice. Millennials want to make a difference. They want to make the world a better place. These are some benefits that are going to attract the kinds of millennials you want, particularly as a producer, but this goes beyond the role of producer. Fleet Mall, he's on the Coaches Council for Forbes. If you go out and search him, he's got some really, really great articles out there. And he says in this posting here, although millennials sometimes get a reputation for needing excessive training and direction, what they are really looking for is support to work on something autonomously. Now look at the next sentence. They are invested, millennials are invested in accepting responsibility if there is sufficient reward for doing so. And when a problem arises, they try to move past blame in order to find a solution. Now that sounds like somebody I want on my team, and I want this person going where I'm going because I like that viewpoint of the world. Millennials get some bad raps about being entitled and lazy and such. More than that, it's really that they just look at the world, look at life from a different point of view. But if you give them something worth committing to, if you give them something worth buying into, they will buy into it, and they'll do it with every bit of passion that they've got. Now, this is where you begin to leverage the power of psychological ownership. This is actually a term in psychology that individuals come to believe something is mine long before I ever do anything to make it mine. Let me give you an example. Black Friday. And by the way, I don't go out on Black Friday, and situations like this is exactly why. I can tell you something about every person that's there. Every person that's there fighting that crowd, hanging on to those, probably under $100 40-inch smart TV that guy's lifting up. Every one of those people, before they left the house that morning, they in their mind believed that TV is mine. When they got out of their car at the store, when they walked up and stood in line or walked in the door, when they faced that crowd, every one of them felt that TV is mine. How do I know that? Because people only go to these extremes to protect something they believe is theirs. They believe that these items, whatever they are, they're mine. And I'm not going to let that person next to me, I'm not going to let anybody stand in my way. That's mine. And I'm going to walk away with what's mine. Another example is, have you ever seen somebody drive into a parking lot and get really, really upset when someone gets my parking place? Well, what is my parking place? It's the one that I spotted, I think, before the other person did. And so they jumped in that parking place before I could get there. And I thought, I'm going to get mad all day long. Why? Because that person stole not that parking place, but stole my parking place. When we can create that kind of psychological ownership, we change how people look at their job. Now, this is going to be some really simple ways, and we're going to look in compensation in a moment. But here's some creative ways to develop and create a culture of psychological ownership. When you hire a producer, actually, when you hire anybody, you could do it with your existing staff. Say, you could pick out your own office chair. Now, here's the budget. We've got X amount of dollars to spend. You pick out your own chair so that when you sit down every day, that's a chair you know that you've picked out. I know some owners that try to standardize and everybody's chair looks the same, but if you let that person sit down in my chair every day, it changes how they view their chair. You can pick out your own monitor. We'll give you a budget for it, and you pick out the monitor that you want to use. The posters, maybe you give them 8 or 9 different posters, 6 or 7 different posters. Say you pick from the posters you want, but you can put the posters up in your room, in your office that means something to you. And you can also take one wall in your office and paint it any color that you want. One of the big eye associations did that when this CEO took over, Denise in Oklahoma, and she actually lets the employees pick a color for their wall, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic idea. Why do you do these things? Because then I'm sitting down in my chair looking at my monitor, reviewing my posters, and I'm behind or in front of the wall that is the color that I picked. There's an ownership that I feel I have helped create my workspace. If we create psychological ownership, people protect that. Give you one other example I didn't put in here, but this is Scott Cornelius in Oklahoma, outside Oklahoma City, ECI Insurance. When someone goes to work for Scott, he gives them a custom license plate that says ECI and has a number on it. They did a photo back several years ago, and they had all the cars lined up with the license tag showing, and it started with ECI 1 and all the way up to whatever the last number was. And I said, well, Scott, do people care about that? He said, Tom, you won't believe. People can't wait. New hires can't wait to get their license plate and put it on. And then if they leave the agency, they got to turn their license plate in, so they lose something that they believe is theirs. And he said people value that. They want to protect it. They also pay more attention how they're driving because they realize they're representing the agency everywhere they go in Oklahoma City area. So interesting ideas about psychological ownership. We want to particularly pay attention when it has to do with compensation. Now, when we get into this next area, again, if you have questions, please just go down to the question box, send them to me. I'll be glad to answer as we go along. But let's look at how this whole idea of ownership, psychological ownership, how the whole idea of what millennials are looking for, how to restructure compensation. We're going to look at a kind of a different view of it. Here's where we're going to start. In order to compensate millennial producers, give them a compensation target to hit. In other words, it's not sky's the limit, earn whatever you want to earn. You've got an open book. You can't be psychologically invested and own something that is undefined. What if you work towards psychological ownership by making that individual, it's their responsibility to earn their money? In other words, we're going to give them a specific dollar amount. We're going to get them to buy into a certain amount of money that is theirs because we want the psychological ownership to where they say, that's my money and I'll do whatever I have to in order to get my money. I understand I receive my money when I do my job. And here's a really radical idea for America today. It's my job to do my job. I hate to say it, that's almost anti-American right now. And a lot of the mindsets of people, it's not my job to do my best, it's my job to do my job. And I receive my money when I do my job. Now, how do we structure that and create that compensation target? We're going to look at a 4-year plan. Right now, what you have in front of you is, and by the way, someone asked about unpaid or unlimited time off. Yes, it would be paid. And by the way, I've got some structures to put with that I won't have time to go into on this workshop. But there are some structures you can put in place that protects you from people that would abuse it. But yes, that would be unlimited paid time off. We're going to look right now. Let's say we tell a new producer your plan income is $44,000 for the first year. Rather than saying we're going to give you a base and then you're going to have a commission, we don't know how much you're going to earn, we're going to put a specific number. $44,000, you own that. That's your money. And if you notice, we've got you planned for $11,000 every quarter during the first year. This is a brand new producer, millennial producer. You can still use many of these same principles with any producer, but this is going to be real specifically geared toward a millennial producer. So first thing I'm going to do, I want that person buying in and saying that $44,000 is my money. I'm going to do whatever I have to get my $44,000. Now I can see that just like that smart TV I saw in my head before I left my house that Black Friday morning. I want that in my head. I want the $11,000 in my head. And we're going to then create a compensation plan in order to deliver that. Now, you see another number here that's different than what you're used to, and it is performance income. I want to take a moment to explain what performance income is, and then I'm going to come back and go through this year one plan. Let's look at some metrics that I'm going to use right now as a revenue goal for a 12-month period of $60,000. This is going to be purely depending on your plan, but we're going to use this as an example. And let's say that it is this producer's job to write $60,000 in commission revenue in a 12-month period at an average 12% commission rate, average new sale of $10,000. If you do the personal, commercial, and life, you want at least 60% of those maybe that would have two different departments, average close rate of 40%, and on average have to talk with 5 prospects in order for someone to get the opportunity to quote. So let's say that these are your numbers right now. We're going to create key performance indicators, KPIs, and these KPIs, I took the revenue goal divided by the commission rate and got 500,000. By the way, in the workbook, the Excel workbook I'm going to send you, it's got all these formulas. You can just plug in your numbers and it does all the calculations for you. So I'm going to give you everything you need in order to do everything that I'm talking about in this workshop. I took the 500,000 divided by 10,000 average new sale and got my new accounts. I took the average accounts and divided by my close rate and got how many proposals, multiplied by the number of prospect conversations. So all of these numbers are very specific in order to hit the goals. We're retrofitting. We're starting with the end and working backwards. And instead of starting from the beginning and hoping for the best, we're going to start with the results we want and create a very clear path that's going to get us to that path. Now, you see a maximum score over to the right. This is what I recommend that you do with performance income. And it's very, very simple. When the individual gets 100% of their goal, they get 100% of their maximum score, which all add up to 100. They get 90% of their goal, they get 90% of their maximum score. If they go over their goal, it's still a maximum score because 100 is the most points that you can get. When we do this, then they are going to, we do it quarterly. Actually, we have a system that does it, but it breaks all this down quarterly. But if you do this quarterly, then those goals are going to be divided quarterly. And each quarter, this individual, this producer is going to get a score of 0 to 100 that says, have I done my job? Have I taken us to the place that's going to earn me the $44,000 or whatever your psychological ownership compensation target is? If you score 95 to 100, you get 100% of your money. You score 94, you don't have enough proposals. Maybe you don't follow procedures. Maybe you didn't have enough premium. Whatever, if you score 94, that's just cost you $1,500 of your money, because all you got to do to get all of your money is to do your job. But we're telling that person exactly what their job is. I recommend you can set these ranges any way you want and the percentages any way you want. What you're doing is making the individual accountable. You're saying that $6,000, whatever the amount is, that is your money. they psychologically buy into it. Agency in Georgia, Kevin called me one day and he said, Tom, one of my staff came to me and she said, I hate these KPIs. I think they're a waste of time. I think they're worthless, but that is my money. And I'll be darned if I'm going to leave a dime of it on the table. So I'm going to hit, I'm not going to enjoy it, but I'm going to hit and make sure I get my 95 to 100. And she did. She delivered the results because she saw that as her money and she was psychologically bought into it. Now, a lot of times when I talk about KPIs, particularly with producers, and you go back and you look at the things that, these are just examples. I've got a list of about 100 different KPIs that I'm going to send you when this is over. So this is just some looking at producer and looking at the sales process. But I have people tell me, well, Tom, that sounds like you're trying to micromanage me. And I hear that from producers more often than I wish I did. Tom, you're just trying to micromanage me. I'm going to do the best I can. Just trust that I'm going to go. No, I can't do that, because if I don't have enough knowledge, then I don't have a way to hold you accountable. It's not micromanaging, it's accountability. And accountability cannot exist in the absence of knowledge. If you do not know where the strengths and weaknesses of your staff are, if you don't know where someone needs help and where they need challenge, you don't know how to recognize, you don't know how to come and support, you don't know how to lead that person and help them grow, which means they're on their own, which means you're hoping life's going to be good to you and just bring you all the good stuff. And I hate to tell you, life doesn't always work that way. So the reason for the KPIs is for accountability. I'll just give you a snapshot. This is how we deliver KPIs to the staff, so that each producer or each staff, they'd be able to see exactly where they are, what they achieved, and how much money is their money on the table and where the agency stands. So this is the kind of information I believe it's very important for your producers to have. Now, I've gone back, and we're back on year one, and we talked about the $44,000 and the $11,000 a month. Here's how you structure this plan. They have $1,000 every month that is their money for scoring 95 and above on their evaluation scores, on their KPIs. 750 means they scored 90%. They got 90% of the goal, which means they lost 25%. So they get $750 rather than $1,000. They may get less than that if they get lower than 90. Their salary income, we're going to start out at $3,333 a month for the first quarter. We're going to decrease that to $3,000 a month for the second quarter, $2,500 for the third quarter, and $2,000 for the fourth quarter. You can make these numbers anything you want. This is a fully customized. You can sit down and create any type of a plan that you want. But this plan is set up so that at the end of the fourth quarter, this individual is going to be making $2,000 a month. Notice that every quarter there's a portion of the salary that is rolled into commission, and that is proportionate to reducing the salary every month. So you're gradually going to reduce this person down that at the end of the fourth quarter, they're making $2,000 a month. They're still making $11,000 a month because that's our target to get to $44,000, but they're earning more and more of it from commission, and it calculates and tells you exactly how much commission revenue they have to bring in order to earn that amount of commission income based on 20% when they hit their goal. Now, here's where the psychological ownership, and here's where that sense of that's my money. When you do your job to get your money, you're going to get 20%. If you do not bring in $5,000, if you bring in $4,999, if you bring in less than your goal, then instead of 20%, you're going to get 15% or whatever amount of risk you want to share. That goes through every quarter in this first year. What this means is you're limiting your risk. You're saying, I'll pay you top dollar, but you have to bring in an X amount. You've got to hit this goal of 5,000 and 12,500 and 20,000 in order to get all of your money. It's not a bonus. It's not if you do it. It's your job to do that, because that's how you're going to make $11,000, and that's how you're going to make your 44,000. If you get 90%, you do 90% of your job instead of all of your job. You do 90%, then you're going to earn $40,563 instead of 44,000. Which one means that you've earned less money, but it also means you've not done your job, because the way that I know you've done your job, you've earned $44,000. Now, let's look at year 2, 3, and 4. When you sit down right now with a prospective producer, all you're putting, I'm going to make a guess that most of you, what you're putting in front of this person is possibilities. You've got a split of maybe first year, maybe, I've seen them go up as high as 90%. You've got some type of a split on the table, and beyond that, hey, sky's the limit. Earn as much as you want. What we're going to do is to put a plan. This is really, really important for millennials. Is you want to be able to show that person what is their income going to look like going forward. And you can show this individual that in 4 years, they're going to be at 6 figures. In this plan, if this is a reasonable plan, it may be for your agency, it may not. But if this was a plan for a producer in your agency, you could say you're going to be at 6 figures in 4 years. And I'll show you exactly how your income is going to stage out year by year over the next 4 years. I got to tell you, for anybody, but particularly millennials, that's very, very, very appealing for them to be able to see, I've got a path, I've got a career path, I've got an income path. And then if they buy into that 48,750 in year 2, you've got the psychological ownership where they say, I'll do whatever I need to earn $6,000 in performance income. Now notice we're staying at $2,000 a month. Traditional plans, you'd have this person, whenever you validate, whether it's after 12 months, 18 months, whatever your normal validation, that you'd roll them into 100% commission. We're going to keep this millennial at $2,000 a month for the first, for the first full year as a producer, for year number 2 working with your agency. We're also going to keep the commission at 20% when they do their job. We call this the prime commission rate, and we're going to have a reduced commission rate if you don't do your job. We combine new and renewal. Now think about it for a moment. Why? We pay people new because we want to incent them to write new business. But as their book grows every year, they have less and less incentive to write new business and more incentive to say, hey, I'm making what I need to make. I don't know if I want to sell as hard. I don't know if I want to work as hard. And you end up with producers that, as again, Al Diamond puts it, they retire in place, which is the very opposite of what you want to do. As a business owner, what you want to know is, in this year, I need $93,750 in the bank from this producer. I don't care whether it's new, renewal, I don't care. As a business owner, I need $93,750. And when you deliver that, and by the way, this is a 90% retention rate that I'm working on, and which is pretty good industry standard. And I'm putting in how much new business is going to be written. So if I take the 90% renewal from year 1 and I take 60,000 in new business, when this individual writes, or between renewals and new, $93,750, pardon me, they're going to make 20% on that. They're going to make $18,750 in commission income, plus their salary, plus their performance income. They're going to make $48,750 in their second year. Now, if they only get 90% of their goal, 90% of their KPIs, 90% of the 93,750, it means they're going to earn 41,156. They're going to earn less money. and it means they have not done their job. And there are consequences to not doing your job. This is not a bonus, do whatever you want. We want producers buying in and saying, that's my money. I will do whatever I have to not lose it. Year 3, it's the exact same thing. We're going to go 90% retention. We're going to put in the amount of new business you want to write. But notice, if the person has done their job in year 2, they have earned $48,750, not $48,700, but they've earned $48,750 or more. I mean, commission, they could earn more than $48,750. But as long as they've earned a minimum of $48,750, we're going to increase, instead of decrease, we're going to increase that person's monthly income by $500, and we're going to bump up their commission rate, their prime commission rate, to 21%. Now, you're going to want to cap this after 2 years, 3 years, maximum of 5. That's up to you where you cap it, but it certainly would have a cap on it. But now you can tell a millennial, hey, as a millennial, I understand financial security means something to you. So every year you do your job, your salary is going to go up by $500 a month, and you're going to get an extra percentage on your commission. That's an incredible thing to sit down and offer to someone when you can map it out and show them exactly what this is going to mean for them over a 2 to 3 year period. You're painting a very clear career map for that producer. And again, for millennials, I think for everyone, but in particular for millennials, that's going to be very, very important. Now, down at the bottom here, it's showing you based on your average commission rate, it will calculate and tell you how much premium that is. And if you plug in an average account, this just gives you an idea of how many accounts have to be written in order to generate that premium based on the numbers that you have. Once again, you can take these numbers, you can make them do anything that you want. You can create your own plans. You just plug in the numbers, all the math, all the formulas is here, and you can see how this is going to work for you. And the next sheet in the workbook that I'm going to send you, pardon me, the next sheet answers a question that everyone has, and that is, can I afford to do this? Does this make financial sense? And by the way, if you do have any questions, because I am leaving time at the end, so please feel free to, if you do have any questions, just send them through in the questions box, and I'll be more than happy to answer as many of those as I can when we're done. What this worksheet is designed to do is to say, and I'm going to start year 2. Year 1, I will tell you, you are going to absorb some risks in year 1. If that person makes $44,000 and brings in $37,500, then you've actually used 118% or 117% commission or income to revenue when they hit their goal, 120% if not. First year, there is a risk. Understand that, and most agencies understand that your first year of getting a producer onboarded, they're not going to pay for themselves the first year. This tells you exactly how much difference that is. Year 2, if the individual is responsible for earning $48,750, and that's their income on this 3-part compensation plan. It's performance, salary, and commission. If you were to pay on 100% commission, on a just straight what you're doing right now, if you were to pay out $48,788, which is, again, pardon me, the same amount that I'm paying on this new plan, that would be equivalent to paying 56% on new business and 45% on renewal business. Now, when you think about it, that's probably not that far off from what you would be paying otherwise. you're probably starting a producer somewhere not that far off from those numbers. And remember, you're only paying that out if there's $93,750 in the bank. If the person's on a reduced rate, you're going to be paying less than 56% and for new and 45% for renewal. But look how this tracks over year 3 and year 4. Every year that you go along, your exposure, particularly compared to the current plan you're doing right now, by year 4, it's a 46% new, 30% renewal if you compared it with what you are currently doing. So this plan is not that much different than what you're currently doing. If you look at what you're paying out, if there's only 90% achieved of their goal, this plan's not costing you any more than what you're currently doing and putting out whatever your traditional new business and renewal split. What it is doing for you, though, it is giving you the ability to lay a path for someone. They know exactly where they're going. It's limiting your risk because you're putting a focus on a certain dollar amount that is going to be brought in and by the way, Nancy, thanks for the question. Asked about chargebacks. My recommendation is when you do commission revenue, that's the money at the end of the month you get to spend. So that would be less chargebacks, cancellations, whatever. That's the money that you get to spend is what counts as commission revenue. Because that is a problem with the traditional model is you're going to have to go back to that producer and say, hey, you got a chargeback. How do you handle that? Some owners are a little bit concerned about, do I really want to take that money back? Here it's real simple. The amount of money in the bank at the end of the month that the agency gets to spend, that's what we're going to count as commission revenue. With this plan, you've got a target that you and the owner, you and the producer know where you're going and what it's going to take to get there. You limit your risk because you're sharing risk with the producer. Instead of you taking all the risk, you're sharing that risk. And this person, if I don't do my job, it's going to cost me my money. And it's not just not earning as much, it also means I have not done my job. Ultimately, could that lead in someone's termination? Actually, yes, it could. How difficult is it to terminate people these days? We got to be really, really, really careful, particularly depending on who the individual is and such. And, if it's, we put, kind of goal out there, but the goal was never really hard. And this just doesn't seem to be working out. And there's a lot of emotions that go into letting someone go. If you have a compensation plan that says it's your job to earn $44,000, $48,750, $70,519, it's your job to score 95 or above on your performance and your KPIs, it's your job to have so much money in the bank at the end of each month, at the end of the year, then if that person doesn't deliver, you have a paper trail, you have an audit trail, you have a responsibility and accountability trail that is very clear this individual knew, and in our agreement with producers, it says very clearly, I understand that my income as well as future participation as an employee of this agency depends on me doing my job. I've just had the courtesy of having my job explained to me. So there's a lot of benefits in looking at this as a model. Now, what if you want to do what if you want to do this with someone who's not a millennial? You could have the salary completely go away at the end of the first year or in 18 months, whenever. That's just going to put more money coming from commission. So this works just as well if you choose to phase out the salary altogether after some period of time. What you are left with, though, is you're left with commission and performance. Once again, producers will not like the performance. They're not going to like those KPIs. They're going to say that's micromanaging me. No, what it's doing is providing you the knowledge to be a leader, because accountability or leadership cannot exist in the absence of knowledge. If you don't know where your numbers are, if you don't know where someone's strengths and weaknesses are, you don't know how to help them. You don't know how to get them the resources, the encouragement, the recognition, the challenges, whatever it is that person needs. You don't know that if all you're doing is looking at X amount of dollars every month. And it's very, very important with millennials, but this everybody appreciates recognition. I understand the producer's point of view, but it's not enough to say, hey, look, I'm not costing you anything. Let me do things the way it's always worked for me, and trust me to bring in ever how much, the most money that I can bring in for this year. You go from that to now you've got clear targets, and I'll just give you a snapshot. We have a talent management system named Symphony, and it actually lets the owner see at a glance what everybody's performance is, how the agency's doing. It also has a place that you can go in and look at exactly what each person's doing with their KPIs. Give you some knowledge there to know how to lead and recognize and encourage folks. It also gives each producer, each employee, they know exactly on a day-to-day basis what their job is and also what their evaluation score is. Now, the question that's always asked here is, how does this information get into our system, or how are you going to do it? Everything I've given you here, you can create your own plans using what I'm going to send you. Because I think that's important to give you what you need in order to make this work for you. However, if you want an alternative, our alternative is you could use your agency management system to enter this data, and then we can do a download, at least in our system, as long as the agency management system allows you to create unique activity codes. Some do and some don't. You already know if yours does, but I can give you an idea of the ones that do and don't. But the agency management system is certainly the best way to do it, because then they're entering the data where they already are. But also we have a dashboard here that they can enter it in. What happens with something like this, and however you decide to do it, what happens is every time I achieve something as this individual, I watch my personal score go up. Now, it's something interesting they're finding in neuroscience. Most of you have probably heard of dopamine. It is a highly addictive pleasure chemical that the body creates, and it releases every time I achieve something. Every time I succeed, I check something off a to-do list, I take a step forward, I get a shot of dopamine, which every time I watch my score go up, I get a shot of dopamine. And the nice thing about dopamine is I always want more, and even the anticipation of getting it is almost as satisfying as actually getting it. So if you've got a system that you can keep someone's success in front of them for accountability, but also, wow, I can look at myself compared to the agency and where I should be, and I'm doing pretty well here. I'm making the money. I know where I'm going. We're putting vision in front of people. I want you to kind of think through, and we've just about 3 or 4 minutes. If there are some other questions, go ahead and send them through, and I'll be glad to answer. It is important to me to end on time. So I'm going to wrap things up in a couple of ways. We've looked at why the current compensation models, I believe, really need to be brought into the 21st century. I don't believe 30-year-old models of compensation are going to work. There's something about learning how to attract millennials. Not to say we ignore boomers, but we need to be very focused and aware of what millennials have to offer, where they live, and how we're going to attract them. We also want to be able to create that psychological ownership, that we get people to buy in on an emotional level to their part in the agency, but also their job, that it's more than just, I'm going to wait and see what happens and do my best. We've got a target that we start from the end. We work backwards so we know exactly the path that we're going to take. And then we look at a compensation plan that gives people the ability to grow, having a specific target in mind. And for me, I think those are very exciting kinds of prospects. Now, please feel free. You're more than welcome to call. I'll talk with you through your compensation, what you're currently doing. Send me an email. I'd be more than happy to get back to you. I've got one agency. I started in January of this year, and he called me and said, I need help creating a compensation plan for a producer I'm wanting to hire. I've created 6 plans so far this year for this individual. They're still not a customer. He hadn't paid a dime for it. If I'm able to help you grow your agency, you've got a phone number, you've got an email address, you let me know. That is my privilege in order to be able to have a part, even a small part, in where you're going for 2019.